My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. "33 souls who were atheist, agnostic, Catholic, Christian, Buddhist, Taoist, Hindu, or had other religious or spiritual beliefs before they died, progressed deeper into heaven, paradise, than near-death experiencers, and returned to share mind-blowing new details about God and the afterlife. What did they discover? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Nanci Danison, is one of those 33 souls and combined their experiences with hers to share a remarkable story. Nanci holds a B.S. in biology and chemistry, magna cum laude, a B.A. in psychology, magna cum laude, and a doctorate in jurisprudence. She had a nationwide litigation and health law practice for 36 years and is ranked in the top 5% of attorneys nationwide for competence and ethics in the Martindale-Hubbel Bar Registry of Preeminent lawyers. She's written 5 books detailing the experiences she lived and information she received in the afterlife following her 1994 death. She has come back from the dead multiple times and devotes her entire life to sharing the messages she's brought back from God. Her website is NanciDanison.com, and she joins me this week to share her remarkable story and just published book, 33 Souls Who Met God, accounts of atheists, Buddhists, and Christians who died and met the same God. Please join me in welcoming back to Destination Unlimited, Nanci Danison. Welcome back, Nanci.
Well, thank you, Victor. I'm so happy to be here.
Nanci, this is your 3rd time joining us. We should have the club like they have on Saturday Night Live for the people who come back and join them from time to time. And we're going to be discussing your 7th book. 7th book. Congratulations.
It's actually my 6th book, Victor. I'm sorry.
Why do I see 7, though, in the list?
I don't know.
Okay. Your 6th book, Nanci. Congratulations.
I've been wondering if, I get enough feedback from this book from other expanded afterlife experiencers who might, send me their story, whether I would be willing to do a 7th book. I don't know.
Well, 7th is a very special number, so I would go for it.
Okay, well, maybe.
Nanci, for our listeners meeting you for the first time, please share your early life and your beliefs about life and death when you were younger.
I was raised as a Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic school through 12th grade. I played the organ in church, and I was a Virgin Mary girl. I had an altar to Virgin Mary in my bedroom most of the time, always during May, but most of the time. And then I went to a Methodist college, and I'm so old, Victor, that when I went to college and we had to go to scholarship students had to go to church services every Sunday, and we had to wear white gloves and dresses. And I think this is my 2nd year of college. That was no longer required. But anyway, so I went to Methodist College. I got degrees in chemistry and biology together, a Bachelor of Science, and then I got a separate degree in psychology as a Bachelor of Arts. And then I worked for a couple of years as a chemist and went to law school. And so now I have a doctorate in jurisprudence, and I practiced law for 36 years, and I retired about 10 years ago.
What motivated you to study and practice law?
Well, to tell the truth, I wanted to go to medical school. And while I was getting my degree in biology, I was in charge of the laboratory animals in the biology department. And I did surgery on one, and it was a dog, and he died. I did surgery on a guinea pig, and the guinea pig died. And I delivered babies in another guinea pig. And that didn't go well. So I thought, hey, this is a sign that I am not supposed to go to medical school. And I didn't have a plan B. So I started taking a bunch of tests. And I did really well on the law school admission test. It's a really inspired choice, wasn't it, Victor?
Absolutely. You know, there's an old joke about a pastor who passes away, and he arrives at the pearly gates, and he's greeted there by St. Peter, and St. Peter shows him this beautiful little cottage, and he says, this little cottage will be your residence in heaven. And he looks and he says, that's beautiful. And he looks up the hill and he says, this huge mansion at the top of the hill. And he says to St. Peter, he says, I appreciate my mansion, but whose my cottage, whose mansion is that? And St. Peter says, that mansion belongs to a lawyer. And the pastor says, a lawyer? He says, yes, we have so few of them up here. That's why he has that beautiful mansion. But that's not the type of lawyer you were. You were a lawyer who was dedicated to advocating for others. How did you receive that calling?
Well, because I wanted to go to medical school, I decided maybe the next best thing was to be a health lawyer. And so I studied on my own. You know, while I was working full time, I was going to seminars and learning health law. And that was primarily representing healthcare providers. You would not believe the kind of trouble that the government can cause for our doctors and hospitals. So I represented them in mostly Medicare and Medicaid audits and criminal investigations.
How did you go from being a partner in a 270 attorney law firm to writing 6 spiritual books?
I died. After I died, it just turned my whole life upside down. Everything I'd ever believed was pulled out from underneath me. I didn't know anything anymore. I mean, I knew the truth from what I was in the afterlife. I didn't know anything about human life. And I just thought, I can't do this anymore. And so I left my big law firm and went out on my own as a single attorney and did just fine. It's scary as heck, but I did just fine. That was the only motivation for it. It was just, I couldn't do it anymore. And I also felt like I couldn't subject my partners to the turmoil I was going through. I mean, even after I came back from dying the first time, Victor, I, from time to time, would just kind of fall down and I'd go back into the afterlife, you know, for just a few seconds at a time, or I would have flashbacks from the afterlife. And I never knew when that was going to happen. And so I thought I might be kind of a liability for my law firm.
Mm. Please share with our listeners your experience of death.
Which one?
The first one.
It upsets my body terribly to talk about it. You know, I'm more than willing to talk about the afterlife, but the actual dying process, it just upsets her too much. You know, I will say that I was in a mammography room having what's called a needle localization procedure, which was necessary before breast cancer surgery, because not every breast cancer forms a lump. Sometimes it shows up on a mammogram as calcium deposits. And so I had to have mammograms and a radiologist sticking a needle into the center of these 3 tumors. And the combination of the 2 shots of local anesthetic that she gave me and very low blood sugar and a racing heart. And my heart just eventually stopped and I was gone.
How long was the actual experience and how long did it seem to you?
I don't know exactly. The radiologist and radiology technician left the room and left me sitting there alone. And I was concentrating on trying to slow my heart down. They were gone for half an hour and I came back after they came back into the room. But for me, it was a lifetime. I mean, I lived eternal life in the afterlife, but it wasn't. See, there's no linear time once you're out of the body. Only humans measure time in little bits and bytes. And only humans experience time in a linear fashion. This happens and then that happens. And it's not like that once you get out of body. Everything's all at once. So I could live a lifetime in 30 minutes.
Mm. What would you share with those who fear death?
It is just waking up from this human incarnation, nothing more. I learned in the afterlife that we are all literally part of the Creator, and we never leave its mind and heart ever. So there's nothing to fear. That you can't go to hell, you can't go anywhere but waking up within the Creator's mind again. But it's something that most religions and spiritual philosophies don't teach. A lot of times religions will say that we're children of God, and that gives a false impression because children are definitely separate from their parents, in human life. We are not separate from our Creator. We exist solely within its mind, and it puts little bits and pieces of its consciousness and self-awareness in the form of what we call souls into physical life all over the universe. But they're still connected to, the Creator's mind, just like our dream characters are still in our mind. They don't go anywhere when we wake up.
As wonderful as this experience must have been, you came back. Why?
I fought it, but all through my first afterlife experience, and I got the answers to all my questions. I watched a complete history of Earth. I watched all of creation. I reawakened to the knowledge that I was actually the Creator, that I was source. All through that, I kept saying in the back of my mind, somebody ought to tell those people, because nothing that I had believed as a Catholic was true for me in the afterlife. And I just thought, somebody's got to tell those people down there on Earth, And as I was, right before I was sent back or came back into this body, I was still thinking, somebody's got to tell those people. And then I realized I was going like through a whirlwind back into my body, and I was saying, I didn't mean me. I'm not volunteering for this. But here I am.
But you did volunteer, didn't you?
Apparently so.
You've shared that you grieved for 7 years after returning. Why, and what was that like?
I grieved the loss of everything I believed before. I mean, I was thrilled to find out that I'm literally, the Creator, that I'm literally source, that I'm just one tiny little bit of its consciousness and self-awareness, but I've never been separate from it. I mean, that was thrilling. But I liked the Catholic religion. I liked going to Mass. I liked communion. I liked the pomp and circumstance. And I missed it. I couldn't believe it anymore because I knew it wasn't true. And I missed it. And I liked the life I had before. I liked being a lawyer, and I liked being hated at times. And I just wasn't that person anymore. So I was grieving the loss of the aspects of the personality that I had before I died, as well as my religion. And then I left my firm, and I was grieving that.
When you say you left your religion, there was a song by R.E.M., Losing My Religion. What was that experience like?
Like having the rug pulled out from underneath you, and you didn't know where you were falling to and what you were going to hit.
Was it the message of the religion, of the Catholic Church, that was so missed by you, or was it something else?
I think it was being part of that tribe. Being part of it's a majority religion on Earth. And I miss belonging. Since I've been delivering this message, since 1994, I have found a community of like souls. In fact, my latest book is about, the other 32 people I found that had similar experiences. And I have lots of wonderful experiences and friends that I've made, through my webinars and through my books and all that. But it's not the same as being born into and living within a religious community of like-minded people. I miss that.
You had additional out-of-body experiences after dying. Please share those with us.
I had I don't know how many of them. I had a bunch of them. Like I said, I used to, just fall down on the floor and I'd be back in the afterlife. My office manager would come and find me laying in my office floor. And sometimes I would just come to on the floor. Some of them were, I flashed back to other physical lifetimes that I had lived, that I watched and I remembered living while I was in the afterlife. But once I came back, I would have flashbacks to that. And I can remember crawling on my hands and knees down the hallway in my office suite. And I was some kind of a big cat. And I could feel the whiskers and I could feel the furry belly like swaying back and forth as I walked. And I could feel that I was a feared and vicious creature. And I had flashbacks or visits. Later on, I had another life review. I had an experience where when I was writing my third book, Backwards Beliefs, where I was back in the afterlife and I got a download of every single thing that had ever been written by a human at any time ever in the history of Earth, including telephone messages and post-it notes and homework assignments and, just everything. And I just had, from time to time, other out-of-body experiences. I had 3 what are classic near-death experiences where I was in the hospital dying and I got out of body and, watched surgery a couple times, watched the ER doctor, like through walls, running down the hallways to get to me to try to give me an infusion before I died. So they were all different and unique, but wonderful and in their own way.
Why did you choose the word backwards in the titles of your books about your experiences?
That was given to me. You might know a little bit about that. It took about 7 years for me to get over the grieving and to process the experience I had. And during those 7 years, I was talking to doctors who were telling me I had hallucinated, and I was reading and trying to find out what happened to me. And I had seen this movie, Daniel Brinkley's story, Saved by the Light. And when I saw that, I thought, that's it. That's what happened to me. I know I didn't make it up. And so then I started reading into ebooks. But after about 7 years of that, my body kind of crashed. I lost, I couldn't keep a normal heart rate or rhythm or blood pressure or temperature or anything else. And so I couldn't work. And during that time, I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning with a chapter in my head. And I would go to the kitchen, I would sit down, and I would type the chapter. And that was the end of it for the day. And I generated 1,000 pages. And then one morning I woke up and the organization of them was in my mind. And so they organized into 3 books. And I had a chapter, table of contents in my mind. Another morning I woke up and the title Backwards was in my mind, along with a picture actually a painting. I was supposed to do a painting of Source or the afterlife or something to go along with the title, but I never did the painting.
But you painted with words.
Yes.
Absolutely. Tell us just a little bit for listeners who are not familiar with your Backwards series about the Backwards books.
The Backwards books were actually 2, well, there were 3 of them, but there was a 4th one about love that I I lost when a computer hard drive crashed. So the three backwards books are Backwards Returning to Our Source for Answers, which was kind of an overview of everything, like the view from 30,000 feet, because I was hoping I could get one book published. I didn't think there was any chance I could get three published. The second book, Backwards Guidebook, is the rest of what I wanted to put in the first book, but I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to get that many pages published. And it also includes answers to questions that readers were asking me. So it's organized in the question and answer format. And then the third book, Backwards Beliefs, was all about that, 7 years of grieving my religion. And the way I got peace around that whole issue was by writing Backwards Beliefs and understanding that, what I was shown in the afterlife is that human religions are based primarily on the human experience, because that's all, there is to work with when you don't know anything besides human life. And so humans projected human traits onto God. They project earth-like scenery and lifestyle onto the afterlife because that's all they have. It's impossible to imagine the reality of Source and the afterlife because there's nothing like it in human life. So I finally came to peace with the fact that, people weren't lying to me or withholding information or trying to trick me. They just didn't know. And so that all the chapters in Backwards Beliefs start with the idea that, here's what I learned as a Christian, and here's what I can add to it from what I learned in the afterlife to make the story more complete.
The last time you were on, we discussed your book, Create a New Reality, Move Beyond Law of Attraction Theory. What did you share with readers in that book?
That is everything I can remember from the afterlife about learning what manifesting is. I had 3 experiences in the afterlife where I got these huge downloads of manifesting, and that is the term used in the afterlife for the creator creating physical matter, the physical universe. And I was taught in the afterlife that we, tiny little parts of the creator, of Source, have the same ability to literally create physical matter and physical reality. And we do that for the bodies we inhabit. So, all those people who think they're the victim of circumstance or that they have no control over their lives, this book, Create a New Reality, tells you what I learned directly from Source about how we do have control over our lives, that we literally from moment to moment create the physical life that we are living. The reason why we don't like large parts of it is because we come up with these crazy, harmful beliefs early in childhood. Like we might, for some crazy reason, think that we're not worth anything. Maybe it's the way we're treated by our parents or a sibling, or, it could be any number of things. But we grow up believing we're worthless, or we're ugly, or we're stupid, or, we can't control anything on our own lives, so might as well act out. We have all these crazy beliefs. And because we believe them, we literally create our physical reality life to match those beliefs. So if you grow up believing that you're ugly, you will create a lifetime where you will be reinforced in that belief that you're ugly, even though it's not true. It could be the furthest thing from the truth. So my book, Create a New Reality, is to help people understand how manifesting works and then how to make it work for you. How to create a better reality, how to consciously manifest your life in a better way, how to heal those crazy beliefs that you picked up in childhood that never were true, but you didn't realize it, and you've been building a life around them. And you can undo that by undoing that harmful belief.
My guest is Nanci Danison. When we come back, we're going to be talking about her new book, 33 Souls Who Met God. Nanci, please share with our listeners so they can get all of your books and find out more about you.
Well, Amazon, of course, has all of them. Some book, you can order any of them at any bookstore. I think Barnes & Noble carries some of them. Actually, Target carries my books. not all the Target stores, but I've seen them advertised there. And then I have a website, NanciDanison.com, where you can get my books and other things and get more information about me. And I have a YouTube channel, Nanci Danison.
And you also have these webinars.
I do. I have webinars once a month on topics that my readers send to me. Anything to do with the afterlife or dying or near-death experiences. Just whatever we can come up with.
And how do they find out about those webinars?
They're on my website, NanciDanison.com. Yep.
And we'll be back with more of Nanci after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest, the wonderful Nanci Danison. We're going to be talking about her brand new book, 33 Souls Who Met God, accounts from atheists, Buddhists, and Christians who died and met the same God. Nanci, what inspired this new book?
I have been looking for others like me since 1994. I knew I couldn't be the only soul that had the experience that I did. And I read, every near-death experience book that I could find, all the research works that I could find. I watched YouTube videos. I read accounts on the internet, just hoping to find somebody else like me. Well, then a few years ago, I found Andy Petro, and you can find him on YouTube. He's wonderful. And I thought, oh, there's two of us. And I figured out, well, if there are two of us, there's got to be more. So I, 3 years ago, made a concerted effort to review near-death experience accounts on the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation website. And so altogether, over the 30 years, I reviewed and cogitated on about 2,000 experiences. And among the 2,000, I found 32 others like me. Now, they didn't, have all the same experiences in the afterlife that I did. Some of them had some of the ones that I did. Others had other experiences I had. Nobody was identical, but they all had experiences like mine in some respect. But the most important part is they learned exactly what I learned about Source, the Creator, about the creation of the universe, about the creation of souls, about the purpose of life, and why we are here. And I was so validated by that.
Just out of curiosity, the number 33 has a very strong spiritual significance. Did you ever resonate on that?
No, I heard that. I did an interview not too long ago, and somebody told me, actually somebody else on OM Times Network told me that 33 was significant. I did not know that. The book was, for a long time, 32 souls. And then after I had it finished, I found another one. So I had to go back and edit the whole thing to add the 33rd, and I'm so glad I did.
Absolutely. There's a certain amount of power in the number 33. Number 33 is associated with Jesus Christ, et cetera. So there's a lot of connections with that, so it's good that you did. The descriptions of God shared by those you interviewed was quite different from what we might expect. How did they describe God, and how did this relate to your experience? That
was the first indication when I read a near-death experience or saw one on the internet that it was somebody like me. It was their description of Source. Because, religions are all, like I say, they're projections of human life onto God. And so most religions have a God that is humanoid. Christianity has actual, a father, a male God and a male son. Other religions had, like a Buddha or goddesses or, Zeus, all kinds of different gods have been in fashion around the world. at various times, but they've all been humanoid in nature. The hallmark of what I call an expanded afterlife experiencer, someone who goes into the afterlife and has an expanded experience or expansive or deep experience, is that we have seen the Creator in its raw source energy, in its raw form, in its pure form, with no human projections on it. And the 33 souls describe Source as energy, a force field of love, a river of sparkles, a collection of golden orbs, a energetic thing with like sparkles or blue lightning bolts of energy, or energy that's alive and vibrant and moving. And that's what I experience too. I experience Source as an energy field. And everyone agrees of the 33 that what that energy feels like when we're anywhere near it is love. What humans think of as love is actually the Creator Source's energy. And so it's a fabulous experience to be that close to Source, to just be blasted with unconditional love.
You share that souls come from Source and that we are collectively God. Please explain.
All of the 33, while they, once they encountered this energetic phenomenon, also saw that it had a collective nature. It was one, but also had a collection of like sub-personalities or mental characters, or kind of like our dream characters. If you wanted to, you could think of our own mind as being our core personality plus all the dream characters we've ever had that are in there too. Or maybe a novelist, and somebody who's written a lot of novels, maybe they'll have different groups of characters and different sets of novels, and they keep all those imaginary book characters in their mind. So it's kind of like that. We all recognize that Source is a collection of what humans would call souls. Those souls are actually part of Source's own consciousness and self-awareness. So there's only one consciousness in existence, one self-awareness. But we souls inside these bodies, we share that little bit of it, not the whole thing, obviously. And so that was another defining characteristic of someone who had an experience like me, is that they became aware or recognized that Source is a collective entity. And they also realized through their experience in the afterlife that they are it. They are the phenomenon. We are all part of Source. We are all Source. And when we leave an incarnation and we return to the Source, we become aware that we are Source once more. And if we want to incarnate again, we just differentiate ourselves from the collective and go back into a physical matter body somewhere in the universe. It's totally mind-blowing.
When I was in the New Seminary, an interfaith seminary back in the 1990s, one of the teachings was when God created humanity, Adam and Eve, that from that point forward, he said, I do nothing on my own. I do nothing my own. From now on, I do everything with you, through you. You go on to share in your book that in essence, that we are the experiential extension of Source. What does that mean?
What the 33 were given as knowings in the afterlife when they were within Source was that the purpose of life was for Source to get to know itself, to stretch its mental and creative and emotional limits to see what all it could do. In order to really reflect upon itself and to know itself, it had to have another perspective besides its own. So it started creating these mental characters with which it could interact, the same way we do in dreams. And, depending on what kind of dreams you have, you might learn something about yourself through the eyes of a dream character, the way they treat you. But that's what Source wanted. It wanted to experience itself and everything that it could imagine, everything that it could create, and everything that it could become. But through the eyes of others, it created all these others in its mind, what we call souls, and put them into the physical universe that it created and holds in its mind. The universe is not separate from the creator. It's within the creator's mind, just the same way our dreamscapes are within our own minds, on a much grander scale, obviously.
So in that event, if this is the experiential extension, in virtually every religion around the world, there's an iteration of the golden rule. Love thy neighbor as thyself, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. But some people come and they incarnate, and they're not the nicest in the world. What explanation do you have for that?
What I was told, and some of the other 33, is that we souls are literally Source. We have the same innate nature, which is unconditionally loving, non-judging, creative, curious, funny, fun-loving. And then also Source gave us character, personality traits that it can imagine, but doesn't personally have. And so each of us is a combination of Source and these other traits. And we exist separately and apart from physical matter. The physical world was created by Source expelling, a huge amount of mental energy, and then imposing what we would call laws of nature on that energy. Things like gravity, molecular cohesion, chemical reactions, the laws of physics. Those were all like guide rails set around this energy for it to evolve, and let it just go, let that energy go to see what it could create and what would evolve over time. And eventually what evolved was, the universe as we observe it now: stars, moons, suns, empty space, or what seems to be empty space, galaxies galore, all of which we can incarnate into. So Source puts these mental characters, personalities, what we call souls, into physical matter. And one of those types of physical matter that we can choose to incarnate into is humans. I watched, the creation of Earth, the creation of all life on Earth. I watched the evolution of humans. And, I saw them go from chemicals and goo to what we see now. And we souls can choose to enter into them. Humans are alive. They're biological creatures. They do not need a soul in order to live. Most of them have souls, but they are some people will call them a vessel, but they're way more than that, because they're alive. They have personality. They have a lifespan. They have experiences. What humans live is all they're ever going to know. We souls inside them have eternal life, and we come and we share a human's life with him or her, in order to see, what they experience, what their life is like.
So the essence of compassion, of forgiveness, of loving kindness is a choice.
It's the nature of the soul within the body. All humans, like all other animals, have the survival instinct, which leads them to be self-absorbed, selfish, violent, combative, competitive, everything that an animal needs to do to survive. That's what humans do. They're just animals. And when we souls enter into a human, we may or may not be able to show our own personality through the actions of the animal we're inhabiting. And because we come here to experience, the physical life that's available to us through our host, it doesn't matter if we spend a whole life acting like an animal. That's fine. That's why we're here. If we spend a life more like you do, being of spiritual mind and body and soul, and helping others, and performing a mission like we both do, that's fine too. It's not necessary. So what we see in human behavior is a combined effort of animal and soul, sometimes fighting each other. That's where we get that idea of an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other. It's really two personalities in one body. The animal personality with all of its drives and instincts for survival and for me, because that's the way humans are, along with all the instincts and personality traits of the soul of Source, which are love and compassion and non-judgmentalness, and doing what's best for everyone concerned, learning and being curious and creative, and all that's all goes into a mishmash into one body. And what we see is how those forces interact and combine or fight each other.
One of the things that I've personally recognized, especially the last few years, is that I'll meet someone who I've never met in this lifetime. And by the time I've spoken with them for 5 minutes, I sense that they're soul family, that I've traveled with this person or this soul before. Are there soul families, and do they incarnate together?
I think family carries a connotation to animal-like in nature, because we're not related to the souls that we love, but we do have loved ones. When I died the first time, I met or reunited with my 5 most beloved eternal friends, none of whom I've ever incarnated with. But we do have these eternal loved ones, and we can, if we like, decide to incarnate with them. Or we may just know other souls in the afterlife that we decide we want to incarnate with. And, it's a huge gift when you realize that, when you're living a human life and you realize, hey, I know this person from the afterlife, and you recognize them in a body. And I've done that. That's, and you usually know right away that there's somebody that you've known in the afterlife.
And it's a special gift, isn't it?
It really is.
My guest is Nanci Danison. Her book, 33 Souls Who Met God, will be back with more after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from New Thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute? When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can. But it's just as important to take time for yourself. AARP can help. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, the wonderful Nanci Danison. Her book, 33 Souls Who Met God, accounts from atheists, Buddhists, and Christians who died and met the same God. Nanci, what form do we assume in the afterlife? If we don't have these material bodies, what are we like in the afterlife?
Early on, we might perceive ourselves as maybe a light being or energy or something vaguely humanoid in shape, or not at all. That's just some of the 33 did, most of them did not. But I know other afterlife experiencers who have kind of a perception of a spiritual body. But that drops away. Once we get used to being in the afterlife, it's completely gone. And we perceive ourselves as a point of awareness, a mind, maybe, a personality without any physical components at all. Just a state of existence, a state of awareness.
Do we actually have what some people call a life review?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I had two, and I was told that the life review is kind of it's one of the early aspects of being in the afterlife, because its purpose is to help us acclimate to the fact that we are no longer in human life, and also to open us up to our own natural unconditional love so that we can watch the life that we just left from an attitude of unconditional love and learn about ourselves and about how we impacted other people. We might learn the why of everything, like, why did so do this, or why did I do that, or why did this happen? You get all those whys answered during the life review. You can also get inside other souls and perceive yourself from their perspective and feel their emotions and hear their thoughts and understand objectively what was going on in a transaction, what kind of impact you had on them and them on you. And you can also, in a life review, see what might have happened if you'd made a different choice. So it's a wonderful experience, multidimensional, multimedia. And then some of the 33, which is another kind of defining characteristic of having an expanded afterlife experience. Some of them saw during the life review, like I did, other lifetimes that they had lived. Or
how far back?
Infinity.
Wow.
And some of them saw the future. I did in my second life review. I saw my own future. So it's a humbling, it's a grounding, it's a transitioning type of experience to bridge the gap between living the life that you thought you were and the personality you thought you were, and realizing that there's so much more to you than that.
Is life as an incarnate soul in the material dimension, is it real or is it an illusion?
Both. It's absolutely real for the physical matter, being or thing that you're inhabiting. Like, Victor, the human animal, and Nanci, the human animal, are completely real to them and to other humans and to the physical universe. But we souls, once we get out and we return home to the afterlife, we realize that because we've got this broader perspective, we've got this eternal perspective, we've got this infinity to look back on and forward to, we realize that human life wasn't the real us. It was a real experience for the body, but it wasn't the real us. And that we're so much more than that. We have so many other lifetimes, so many other experiences that, human life is just a drop in the bucket.
Is there an actual heaven or hell?
I learned that there is no hell. I watched creation twice, and I was with Source and remembered what life was like before Source created the universe. And there was no Satan or devil or evil spirit, or there's no opposite to, the unconditionally loving Source. So I saw, and I also learned from, having downloads of knowledge from Source, that no such creature like that exists. Human religions and human spiritual beliefs have created various forms of devils and evil spirits that reside in a fictitious hell, but we don't need to fear that because it doesn't really exist. Heaven is a humanized version of earth life. It's perceived as having beautiful gardens and mansions and, earth life, only supercharged. And that doesn't exist either. What exists is so much better. I mean, being completely saturated with unconditional love and unconditional acceptance and freedom of thought and freedom of movement and the ability to download any amount of information or knowledge that you want, to be able to merge into others that you love in the afterlife and live their lifetimes and have them live yours and emerge together and awaken a source. I mean, it's just beyond comprehension for a human. Yes, but I will tell you, and you know this, the first time I was in the afterlife, I was in bliss, but I missed some things about human life. I missed chocolate. I missed the wind on my face. I missed the feeling of sunshine. I missed being able to feel a hug. So there are some exquisitely wonderful things about human life that we take for granted, that even though the afterlife is sublimely, blissful and in some respects to be more desired than human life, there are some really, really rich and wonderful parts of human life that we come here for, like sex. I mean, some souls come here just for the sex. One of the afterlife experiencers I read said that she learned in the afterlife that we might come here just for the cake, just like I come here just for the chocolate. There are just some delicious treats in human life if we would only stop and enjoy them.
And again, as we shared, we are the experiential extension of Source. So consequently, every time we have that wonderful, delicious piece of cake, Source is having that wonderful, delicious piece of cake.
Yeah, and I think Source is a chocoholic myself. That's the only explanation for why I eat so much chocolate.
That's funny. How do these experiences affect the religious beliefs of those who return from the experience?
Most of them give up their former religious beliefs because they're incompatible with what they actually lived. And among my 33, the ones who had a background in like Buddhism or Hinduism, and one Native American, their beliefs were more aligned with, what they learned in the afterlife. And so they didn't really give those up. They might have added to them. But all the Christians came back with a completely different idea of Source and souls and heaven and everything else. And so they abandoned their formal religious instruction and beliefs.
What would you like readers to take away from 33 Souls Who Met God?
The thing that jumps out at me the most is that these were all humans with vastly different beliefs, different lifestyles, different ages, races, sexes. They were just completely different when you just look at the human. But when they went into the afterlife, they were the same. They all had the same experience. They all recognized and realized and became the same God. And all the divisiveness of their human religions was gone. And I think that's an important lesson for us, particularly right now when, people are so divided over every single thing, every single thought that a person can have, is that none of that matters. We're all really just one, literally, not figuratively, not spiritually, but literally. And that if we could get in touch with that more, we wouldn't have the strife and the anger and the violence and the upheavals that humans are currently experiencing worldwide.
My guest, Nanci Danison, her book, 33 Souls Who Met God, accounts from atheists, Buddhists, and Christians who died and met the same God. Nanci, one more time, please share with our listeners where they can get your books and find out more about you.
You can get my books. The easiest way is just to go on Amazon, and I think they've got them at Amazon UK and maybe some of the others. I'm not sure about that. But I think they have them at Barnes & Noble, Target, Kmart. Just about any bookstore can order them if they don't have it on the shelf. And you can order them from me at Nanci, Nanci, Danison, DANISON.com.
And tell us about the gatherings that you offer there also.
Once a month, I have webinars over Zoom to present the information that I received in the afterlife on a particular topic, and then we discuss it. And people ask me questions, and I ask them questions. And then I sell the video of the presentation part, but not the discussion part. So I like to keep those as just an informal exchange of ideas between the people who actually participate. So you can either attend the webinar in person and participate, or you can get view the video after the fact.
Nanci, thank you so much for joining us again and sharing this amazing information.
Thank you, Victor, for having me and for putting up with my inability to concentrate because, the afterlife is so compelling. It just draws me.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.